Hi, and welcome back to another edition of Coach's Corner. It's baseball time. The playoffs begin this week. Now, we'll tell you we're recording our baseball show with Coach Freeman today. Having a good idea of where the Ponca baseball team is going to go play in the regional playoffs, but it's not 100%. So we'll kind of go along with that and get some of his thoughts on some of the teams potentially the Wildcats may play. But Ponca City is coming off a good last week of the regular season. Coach, you won 2 games, including a real fine pitching, defense, hitting game against Bartlesville, who I know it's a rival, and you had to enjoy beating them.
We did. Definitely you want to win that last game going into regionals. Like you said, we won all 3 of our games last week, so we've talked to the kids all year about playing their best baseball at the end of the season, going into that regional tournament, and I feel that we're doing that at this point. So it was a good game to beat Bartlesville, like you said, and had guys like Josh Evans and other guys step up and play well for us. So definitely a positive note to end the regular season on.
Last week also included a doubleheader victory over Grant High School from Oklahoma City. So your team goes 13-18, but over the last 23 games you went 13-10, and people say, well, you still went 13-18. As a coach, you really have to kind of look at that last month and a half of the season to see that your team has made improvement, and certainly I know you like the direction the team's playing at right now.
I do, and I know the entire staff does. Like you said, we started out 0-8, really rough start. Ended up only having 2 kids back from last year's team and played our first 8 games were against top 10 teams in 6A. So it was not the best recipe for success at the start of the year, which is my fault. But, definitely seen a lot of improvement. And when you talk about, the progress that was made and the work ethic that the kids put in my 10 years of coaching, this is probably the proudest of a team I've been at this point in the season. And I know, at 13-18, that sounds odd, but we've come a long ways, and the kids have really stuck in there and continued to compete and work hard. So I'm really, really impressed with what the kids have been able to do this year.
And the season's not over, but boy, with Evans and Jenkins and Ragland, a good group of core group of juniors, and then, if you'd have thought you'd have to play as many freshmen that you had to this year. No matter what happens this season, you've got to be excited about those guys. If they work hard in the off season, they could be ready for a big senior season.
I think so. Like you said, those 3 are kind of the heart and soul of our team. The leaders, the guys that put in the extra time. Josh Evans, Case Jenkins, and Sam Ragland. And you're right. I mean, obviously, our focus right now is a couple of good practices, getting ready for regionals, which will probably start Wednesday. But when you're just looking forward to the future, you're going to have 7-8 kids back in the starting lineup every day next year that saw an entire season's worth of action. Got a lot of good freshman pitchers. You start matching those 2 groups up together. I think we're going to have a pretty good time here in the future.
Well, a good example would be Friday night with Evans on the mound, and he had pitched a great game. He got in some 2-out trouble Friday night against Bartlesville in the 7th inning, got the bases loaded, and I don't know how tempted it was to go to the bullpen, but I just had a feeling you thought somehow, some way that he's one of those few guys that's going to figure out a way to get out of it, and lo and behold, it took a great play by Travis Nichols in right field, but he got out of it too.
He did. We had talked to him about, it was his game to go finish it, that we probably weren't going to go get him, go finish it off and get the victory for the ball club, but I was definitely pacing in the dugout, and I got to go get him, because he was at the upper limits of his pitch count as far as what we were comfortable with. But like you said, he made the pitches when he had to. I thought he had to throw about 20-25 extra pitches just because the strike zone was so tight Friday night, and I let the umpire know that adds up over the course of the game. But he was able to not let that stuff interfere with what he was able to accomplish that night.
Now, as I mentioned, we are not 100% sure of where we'll put Ponca City in our districts, but for purposes of this program, we're going to put them in Stillwater, which is, I think, where we think there may be a 70 to 80% chance. Again, that all will not be official until later today, but you had anticipated a regional with Sand Springs, Stillwater, and Muskogee. The only thing that might change is that Stillwater is now going to host that, which is probably okay for us. It's less of a drive. Other than that, would you be surprised if Stillwater wasn't your destination and your first-round opponent?
I'm almost about 90-95% sure we're going to play Stillwater first round. Just reading what the paper says, that Sand Springs was allowed back into the playoffs after exceeding their game limits, but that they would not be able to host. So if you just draw the natural conclusion, we're going to play Stillwater. They're the 2, we're the 3, and then Muskogee will play Sand Springs in that 1-4 matchup. It's probably top to bottom, to me, the regional with the 4 best teams in it. I mean, Muskogee might be the 4th seed, but they've beaten Sand Springs head-to-head this year. They've got some big wins. Sand Springs is number 3 at 30-6. Stillwater's like 22-9, and the number 5 or 6 team in the state. So when you talk about going to a regional with 2 top 5 teams, we've got our hands full, and we've got a lot of work to do the next 2 days getting ready for that to start on Wednesday.
Again, the state came up with a regional formula. This is nobody's opinion. This is actually how the teams ended their season in district play. And Ponca City, you've seen all those teams. You had a good win over Muskogee, so there's a plus. You've seen Stillwater, and we saw them a couple of times this year. They're a terrific ball club, aren't they?
They are. Coach Holt does a great job at that bunch, and they've got 7 seniors in their lineup. Kid going to Wichita State, kid going to Stanford, Oklahoma State. I mean, they've got 4 or 5 D1 type college players in that lineup, and then they've got a couple of really good pitchers at the top. So, to me, they're definitely in the discussion about a state championship this year. I mean, they've been gearing up for this for the last few years, and like you said, we've seen everybody in this regional twice, which is an advantage. We beat Muskogee twice with Chris Law on the mound. So, we've got our charts ready for them. We've got everything scouted out, and just going to set our pitching rotation and go get after them this week.
Big controversy in 6A baseball this week was, as Coach and I mentioned, Sand Springs. There's a rule about the number of games, obviously, you can play in the spring, and Sand Springs went over that number of games. The OSSAA could have done a number of things, including making them forfeit out of the playoffs. They didn't do that. They forced their coach not to be with them anymore this year, and they also took away a home field advantage for them in the playoffs. But and I don't want to get you in any trouble, but what do you think about those decisions?
I think they did what was right. I mean, we all know, back when I started coaching 10 years ago, it was just kind of understood that you could schedule 24, 25 games, and if you had rain, you'd be fine, and if you didn't, you'd still be fine, and you get to play them. So we all kind of, one of those rules that everybody broke. But here in the last 3 years with the gentleman that's running the baseball now at the association, we've all known 22's 22, don't go over. And, we've had games the last 2 years canceled on us. So I think they did what was right for the kids, because I didn't want to see those kids lose a chance to compete for a state championship, and they've had such a fine season. It didn't seem right to me to punish those kids for a coach's mistake, and the coach, made a mistake, and he's going to pay for it.
I like that, because we in Ponca had a situation with our girls golf team that was not the same thing, but in a way it was, and I like the decision there, and I like to hear you say that, because sometimes we forget they're all athletes no matter what school they're from, and you like to see that competition, and so I like that, and hey, good luck to you against whoever you play this week in the districts, and we'll look forward to that, okay, Coach?
Thanks, Phil.
Jared Freeman, our baseball coach on Coach's Corner.